All right, guys, welcome back. So today we have an upper body accessory day where we're gonna be focusing on a little bit of overhead press, dips with a focus on technique, so the dips themselves are not that heavy. And then we have a couple back movements, so nothing crazy. My warm-up is gonna be some Lou raises. I'm gonna do them from different angles, so you can see that full range of motion. Now I'm gonna squeeze my butt, bring my chest up, and I'm actually gonna bring the plates back and lean back. Because when you do an overhead press for strongman, take as much of an advantage as you can get. A lot of times you end up leaning back, using more of your chest. Best to warm it up. Then, like I said, my pec has been a bit tight. And the best way to, really, I truly think the best way to kind of mobilize the upper body is just hanging from a bar. Some dead hangs. If you have shoulder issues, this is what I've been programming my athletes. Before every upper body session, 2 minutes worth of dead hangs. 20, 30 seconds at a time. Up to 2 minutes, open everything up, and then you strengthen that range of motion as well. All right, we're gonna work up to 280 on a strict axle bar press for 2 reps, that's the goal. This axle bar is 25 pounds, and then we got these 55-pound kilo plates, so this is 135. From here on out, I'm gonna use just pound plates for the rest of it because easy math. And it looks cooler. I always, two reds, one is not as thick, so it doesn't look as big. And even though it weighs more, it weighs 264 instead of 225 on a bar, but it just doesn't look as cool. And lifting is about looking cool. All right. One thing you're gonna notice is that when I grab the bar, I'm internally rotating my hand, okay? So I'm making a diamond, then I'm gonna grab the bar. My elbows are flared a little bit, but my hand's internally rotated. This way, that wrist is gonna stay stacked on top of my elbow throughout the entire lift. You see a lot of people that just kind of grab the bar, have the bar back in their knuckles, that wrist will roll back, and even just doing that, I'm feeling a stretch here in my elbow. We can't have that. It's going to irritate your elbow. So internally rotate, push your lats out, chest up as you press. One thing I gotta remember is instead of pushing the bar up, you push yourself down to the ground. All right, 225 on the bar. As far as belt position goes, typically I like to wear it a little bit higher, but in strongman, and I think I've noticed this with other people who also wear the belt on bench press. They like to wear it a bit lower. And in strongman, typically you have to take that belt and you have to move it behind you, and you're also cleaning up a log and all this stuff that puts a lot of tension onto your diaphragm. And every time I've done it with the belt higher, even if I feel a little bit more stable, I run out of breath like very quickly. Listen, I realize I'm like recording in public here, but sometimes you get these fucking creepy dudes and they just stare at you like their eyes are just constantly locked onto you. It's fucking weird. Sorry. And it's not like, oh, they're appreciating your lift. It's like they're a little creepy, if you know what I'm getting at. Things I gotta remember with overhead. Embrace the lean. Every time I'm leaning back, I always feel like I'm completely horizontal. That's not typically the case. So embrace the lean, and I have to remember to push myself into the ground instead of, worry about pushing the bar up. Then it gets into a better movement pattern. You get some guys, they can stand real straight up and do it. One, I want to use a little bit more of my upper chest, but two, my overall shoulder mobility is not that great. So I do have to lean back some in order for that bar to be stabilized overhead. And to the people who are like worried about the back, completely fine. If you have strong abs, if you have strong back and you're squeezing your glute, your back is going to be fine. You can adapt to any position like you adapt to anything else in life. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people are like, oh, is this bad for you? Is this bad? Nothing's quote unquote bad for you. It's all dose dependent, one. And two, human beings, we're not the fastest animal. We're not the strongest animal. We're nothing like that. What we are, though, is we are adaptable. Human beings know how to adapt. Our body is designed to adapt. So let it adapt. All right. All right, set one, 240, 2 reps, easy work. Let's go. Always remember to attack the weight. Very nice, very nice. All right, 260 again for 2. What I'm gonna try to remember is maybe a little bit of a wider stance, squeeze the glutes. I think I wanna set myself back a little bit further from the start. I feel like it's actually easier to do that with a log just because of the nature of the log. With the axle bar, because I feel like it's smaller, it's actually, at least I feel like I'm having a little bit more of a difficult time doing so. Regardless, same thing applies. Set myself in that position, drive up to the sky. If anything, push yourself back. All right, here we go. All right, secondary dip day. Now, as you guys know, dips on day one did not really go as planned, but that's fine. I'm confident it's gonna be their day of competition. As far as the dips today, we're just gonna be practicing the technique with some somewhat heavy weight, not really. It's about 170 on the belt right now. Now, if you guys see that my hips, if the weight plates don't even move, that's kind of actually what I'm going for. The technique trick to a competition dip is that we want to lean over our upper body as much as possible at the point of our hips and minimize, honestly, try to minimize how much the weights are going up and down. Because for competition, what we need, rear delt below the tip of the elbow, and our hip joint needs to go below this bar. Other than that, that's it. So today, if I can work on my ability to keep my hips up high as I drop down and drive my hips forward as I come up, that's what we're looking for. As far as my hips going up and down below the level of the bar, the dip handle, not too concerned with that because the heavier weight will just naturally pull my hips down. Okay. Again, like I said, this is 170. We're doing 5 sets of 3, 60-second rests. There we go. One down. As far as time-wise, I got a clock there. Once it hits 12:20, then I'll go. Now you see I'm wearing elbow sleeves. In competition, you're allowed to wear elbow sleeves. You're also allowed to wear wrist straps. I have never been a fan of wrist straps. Maybe I'm just not accustomed to them, but I always feel like they restrict me from getting into a good position. And that goes on bench, on dips, on log, overhead press. If I do ever need to wrap my wrists, I wrap at the actual joints. I'm sorry, at these two bones below the joint. That will give me some relief or some support, but not enough to really take away the mobility needed to get my hands in position. All right, here we go. Two down, 3 more to go. I was looking back through my phone for some of those YouTube videos where I just post a bunch of videos of me lifting, and I realized I do the same exercises. I've been doing the same exercises since I really started. Bench pressing, squatting, deadlifts, curls, dips, chins. It's the same big compound movements. You learn the technique, you optimize the technique, your body standardizes it, and then you produce force, the muscle grows. Three down. There you go. Now, sometimes some bodybuilding movements will change during a certain block or something like that. Even those I tend to cycle through. But that's kind of actually just the nature of the sport. I shouldn't even say the nature of the sport. The nature of the game is that you're doing the same movements over and over again, and sometimes, or very, very close variations of. Two things are happening when you do that. That's 4. So you ask me, okay, well, why are we doing the same moves over and over again? It's because, one, if you're interested in competing in a strength sport, it's going to be standardizing your technique, right? So You have to learn the technique, learn how to produce force, and then you know how to recruit the muscles you need to recruit, and then recruit the maximum motor units in order to move the weight. If you keep switching moves and you're like switching different squats or something like that constantly for your main lifts, you're not giving your body a time to adapt to the new movement pattern. So your body's not going to be able to produce maximal force at that movement pattern, or learn how to. Well, I'm rambling here, right? I think this is the last one. If it's not, I'll look at the video and you go one more. Lost count. All right, I think that was 5. I'm sorry. I'll double check my work and do another one if necessary, off camera. But we are moving on from this guy. All right, guys. Now I'm gonna end this video here with me talking on the side. As you can tell, we're just doing some single arm lat pull-ins. I had another video which is just not loading up. It's not all that exciting. I just took a 315 for 12 on bench press. But I want to talk, I want to respond to 1 or 2 comments that I've had on the videos. And I want to talk a little bit about, right now, about our purpose behind these accessory movements. We still have to push the accessory movements. We should still get to failure. We're still trying to grow these muscles. But we should also understand that these accessory movements are not just there to build muscle. That could be enough of a reason itself. But a lot of times, at least as a coach myself, I'm programming certain movements for a certain purpose, okay? So if I'm a powerlifter or I'm a strength athlete, I don't always care about being, I'm not super concerned with my physique, although it is still a concern. You still want to look good. But a lot of times, okay, why are we training our bicep with an incline bench curl or something like that? Why are we doing an overhead tricep extension? Well, both those movements not only grow good biceps or good triceps, but they also challenge the function of the shoulder. Our overhead tricep extension, like a single arm cable tricep extension where we're doing something like that, well, what position are we in? We're in our overhead position. If we get a good stretch on that tricep, that cable, you're gonna feel good stretch down into the lat. That's all very important to help stabilize that overhead position. So when we go into a heavy log or a heavy overhead press, it makes sense. Okay, so some movements are just going to be, hey, I want to get big and strong, and this movement's really good for that. Other movements, there's a certain reason why we perform them. That's why I like programming pull-ups and dips so much with my powerlifters, with my strongmen, because I do believe there's such good compound exercises a lot of people don't use. For instance, a lot of pressing exercises like the bench or like an incline kind of restricts the movement of our scapula. Not ridiculously so. We're still getting a little bit of retraction and protraction at the bottom. We're definitely getting a lot of depression. But what does something like the dip do? Well, the dip not only helps us train how to depress the shoulders, right? Because we can't be pressing with our shoulders up here like this. It helps us train how to depress the shoulders to keep it in good position, but it also actually allows our back to round. It gets us in a better protracted position than something like a bench press. It's less restrictive than a bench press because there's not a pad there for our scapulars to move. A chin up. Pull-ups are great. Chin-ups are also great. There are often people be like, oh, well, you're taking the easier grip, whatever. The chin up at the top is the best movement to really train and stretch the top end capacity and mobility of our shoulder. So what do I mean by that? Our shoulder does a couple things. It actually supinates. So when I tuck my shoulder in, yes, my bicep supinates. Yes, I get some supination at the forearm, but my shoulder will help supinate. And it flexes and extends behind us. So when we're in this position with the most flexed and most supinated, where a lot of people are going to have a hard time, I'm not the most mobile person in the world, but because I'm resilient in this position, I'm able to push some overhead stuff. I'm able to keep my back and my scapula mobile. Therefore, when I go into the bench press, I experience less shoulder issues when I'm bench pressing and doing other pressing movements. Okay, so these big compound movements, if you're training them right, they take care of a lot of issues that you might see pop up with a lot of lifters. That doesn't mean there's never a time for isolation. Of course, there's a time for isolation, but it's just something to keep in mind. Okay, let's move on to the comments. First things first, I always find these funny. You know, I've had some videos go more viral than others. And these comments I always think are kind of, it's like complimentary. I'm like, oh my gosh, don't make me blush. And it's comments like this. This guy, Harry Potter Pooper, said, damn, it must take a lot of injections to get to that level of powerlifting, LOL. I don't really understand the laugh out loud part. But what he's doing is he's accusing me of not being natural. On other videos I've made, especially about how to bench 500 pounds, obviously it's a catchy title. I do it, and I am natural. But you know, people are always going to get kind of insecure when you make a title about that or you say certain things. And you know, I'm getting accused of taking gear or being a fake natty. I am natural. I've never taken anything. As far as my thoughts on people who think that, honestly, I feel like a little like I feel sad for them. And the reason I feel sad for them is I started like consuming YouTube content and fitness content when I was, you know, in high school or like actually like the end of middle school when I started lifting. And one, I never really looked at comments until maybe the last year or two, and I should really honestly keep not looking at the comments. But I was looking at these bodybuilders and they're so, you know, they're so giant, they're so big, they're just crazy. And you know, people get upset with like body image issues and things around that. And I do realize that, you know, I'm kind of blessed to be so strong, and in my opinion, I look pretty damn good. But you know, that idea of like comparing yourself to these professional bodybuilders, I think it stems from a level of immaturity that maybe everybody has. That should not really be the focus of these videos. That shouldn't really be the focus of why you're watching them. You should watch them for entertainment, find it cool, motivation, inspiration, maybe some education as well. But this idea that you know, just because someone's doing something with their lifestyle, taking stuff or not, because it's someone's genetics or something like that, that you now have to look negatively upon yourself. We do that as human beings. It is honestly a very immature stance. And I'm not saying that if you hold that stance, you are an immature person, because I've definitely felt those ways and things like that before, but you are acting like a child, and we all act like children and we all act like adults depending on, you know, different circumstances. So again, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but when I see a lot of these comments, one, it's kind of complimentary because I know I'm not, and yet people think that I am. But two, it kind of makes me sad because I feel like you're missing the point. You know, you're missing the point of using this as inspiration versus something to be envious or jealous of. But, you know, that's just my opinion. All right, now to kind of a more positive, interesting comment. Gage Clausen says, enjoy the content, brother. Insanely strong. Thank you very much. I've noticed some of your videos talking about the importance of breath work and breathing practices in some other videos, and I'd be interested to hear your take on it. A strong Valsalva is a given, but do you think there's a benefit to looking further than this? Very interesting. So you'd be surprised by a lot of people's inability to actually control their core and their breathing and their diaphragm to actually have an effective Valsalva. A lot of people I've worked with in person or online, everything's into their chest. They don't know how to breathe into their stomach. So that's the base. You need to learn how to do that, and in order to be successful in any strength sport, it's so important. The only other breath work I've done was some Wim Hof stuff. I experimented or like kind of did stuff like that. And then I don't know what it's called, but you can look it up on YouTube. It's called like DMT breathing. But basically it's, you know, you're manipulating the oxygen levels and breathing and stuff like that.
I do think there's a lot of value in breath work. I'm not an expert. I haven't taken too much of a look into any of this stuff, but with my experience with the Wim Hof and that DMT breathing, I do feel very relaxed afterwards. And as far as being a competitor and some of the things I do, you kind of get nervous and you're trying to maybe it's a big lift or maybe you're just kind of competing. You have to be able to control your anxiety beforehand. So if you're gonna go and compete and you're gonna lift this heavy weight, um, you need to learn how to breathe to kind of keep yourself centered. We don't want to calm down and chill and like take a nap before, but we can't go overboard where we get away from our like that nervous excitement that's it's gonna make us stronger into anxiety. And then we have to be very careful of those things. The best way is one, to focus on your breathing, making sure that you're not doing anything crazy. And two, when you feel like your heart's beating out your chest and everything, you feel like you're gonna throw up, just recognize that this is okay and that you'll be fine once you go out there. And once you start actually doing the thing, that anxiety will kind of wash away and will be your superpower, all right? That's all I have to say on that. Hope you guys are enjoying the videos. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, share. Let me know what else I can do. You guys think I can do to kind of get the views up, to get the subscriber count up. I feel like my goal with this eventually is just to kind of, it really is just to document the process. And I think people find that pretty entertaining to do so. Okay, enough yabbing. Have a good one, guys.